Hi folks, and welcome to this video on Act 2 Scene 4 of Macbeth. In this video we're going to focus on a couple of things, one of which is the idea of unnatural imagery, and the other thing we're going to look at is the character of Macduff. But before we start, a quick knowledge check. Stop the video and write down what you think these symbols represent, and then start the video again when you're ready. Okay, the first one, darkness represents evil, malevolence, the hell that Macbeth has unleashed. It's connected to the witches. Light symbolizes heaven and hope and positivity, morality, goodness. Everything that is positive in the world is connected to the idea of light. Nature is a little bit more tricky. So in the play, it's connected to Duncan, goodness, morality. Duncan in Act 1, Scene 4 talks about how he has planted Macbeth and Banquo and he's going to make them grow. And then the murder of Duncan is seen as being unnatural. It's seen as being a real challenge to nature to kill the king. Okay, so as I said, we're going to focus on two things, unnatural happenings and Macduff. So let's look at the idea of unnaturalness first. In this scene, we're outside the castle, and some of the characters are kind of digesting what's gone on. They're having a bit of a chat about what has happened in the castle, Duncan's death, what's going on with Macbeth and Malcolm and Donalbain. So we start with the old man, and he says, 70 I can remember well, within the volume of which time I have seen hours dreadful and things strange, but this sore night hath trifled former knowings. So the old man, if you do the maths here, says he's 70, so he's an old man, he's about 70 years old, and he says he's seen some strange things in his life, but nothing as strange as has happened over the last couple of days. And the Thane of Ross says, Haggard father, thou sees the heavens as troubled with man's act, threatens his bloody stage. By the clock 'tis day, and yet dark night strangles the travelling lamp. Is it night's predominance or the day's shame that darkness does the face of earth entomb when living light should kiss it? So what Ross is saying is, by the clock 'tis day, so it should be daytime, yet dark night strangles the light, so it's unnaturally dark at this point. The old man continues, 'tis unnatural, even like the deed that's done. On Tuesday last, a falcon towering in her pride of place was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed. That's a difficult line to say. So a falcon we know is a bird of prey. A mousing owl would normally attack mice, as the name suggests. However, it's quite unnatural because what the owl has done has attacked a bird that's much bigger, much stronger, much faster, and it has attacked and killed the falcon. So the whole natural order of things seems to have been reversed. Ross continues with some more unnatural happenings. He says Duncan's horses, a thing most strange and certain, beauteous and swift, the minions of their race, turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out, contending against obedience as they would make war with mankind. So Duncan's horses have gone completely wild, and the old man builds on this. He says, 'tis said they eat each other. So the horses have become cannibals and have eaten the other horses. Ross says they did so, to the amazement of mine eyes that looked upon it. Here comes the good Macduff. The good Macduff, the contrast to the bad Macbeth. Anyway, Macduff enters. Ross says, how goes the world, sir, now? And they continue their conversation. Okay, so what I want you to do is pause the video and just focus on that first column that I've read through, and I want you to find every reference to something that is unnatural, and then start the video again when you're ready. Right, here are my suggestions then. So it's dark in the daytime. It should be light, but it's dark. You might think about a reference to the Bible here. So after Jesus is crucified, it goes unnaturally dark. We have a mousing owl that killed a falcon. Duncan's horses have eaten one another. And also the kind of bigger picture of the play, they believe that the sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, have planned the murder of their father. And that's the unnatural deed that all of this is building up to. If we look a little bit closer at the image of the mousing owl that killed the falcon, think about the falcon as representing Duncan and the mousing owl as being the much less important, much smaller person who's got above his station and has killed a bird, or has killed a person that they really shouldn't have killed. Okay, so the second thing we're going to focus on in this video is Macduff's quiet defiance. So let's keep reading. Macduff has come in, Ross has said, "How goes the world, sir, now?" And Macduff says, "Why, see you not?" Ross says, "Is it known who did this more than bloody deed?" Macduff says, "Those that Macbeth hath slain." He's talking about Duncan's guards that Macbeth killed in the previous scene. Ross says, "Alas the day, what good could they pretend?" Macduff, "They were suborned," as in they were bribed, they were put up to it. "Malcolm and Donald being the king's two sons are stolen away and fled, which puts upon them suspicion of the deed." So Macduff's going with the party line here. He's going with the story that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have concocted, that it was the guards that killed Duncan and they were put up to it by Duncan's sons. The fact that Malcolm's gone off to England and Donald Bain's gone off to Ireland only makes them look even more suspicious. And then Ross makes this connection between all the unnatural happenings we have in the first section of this scene and this reference to Malcolm and Donald Bain, and he says it's against nature. It's against nature for sons to kill their father, just like it's against nature for the mousing hawk to kill the falcon. So he says, "'Gainst nature still, thriftless ambition that will raven up thine life's own means." Here he means that people are eaten up by their own ambition. And we know that that's true because Macbeth's vaulting ambition has pushed him to kill Duncan and unleash hell in his own mind. Ross continues, "Then 'tis most like the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth. So Macbeth is going to be king." Macduff says he is already named and gone to Scone to be invested. So he's gone to be crowned. Ross says, "Where is Duncan's body?" Macduff, "Carried to Columkill, the sacred storehouse of his predecessors and guardian of their bones." So Macduff says that Duncan's body has been buried in the appropriate way. The place that he's referring to is on an island called Iona on the west coast of Scotland, a beautiful island, and you can go there to the graves where the old Scottish kings were supposed to be buried. So if you're planning a holiday in the summer, head off to Iona. And Ross says, "Will you to Scone?" As in, are you going to go to Scone to see Macbeth crowned as king? And here is where Macduff gets really interesting because he says, "No, cousin, I'll to Fife." So he's not going to the coronation. He's going home, he's going to see his family. Now, this isn't a major act of defiance, but it is pretty strange that one of Scotland's thanes is not going to support their new king. So it suggests that Macduff's a little bit suspicious, or at least he's not quite on board with Macbeth's kingship. And Ross says, "Well, I will thither." So he's going to go off to Scone to see the coronation. Macduff says, "Well, may you see things well done there. Adieu, lest our old robe sit easier than our new." Now, throughout the play, we've had the image of clothing and how your clothing can represent an identity, and that someone might put on new clothes that don't quite fit them, which means that their identity doesn't quite fit. So Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 3, when he finds out that he's the Thane of Cawdor, says, "Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" He feels like he's wearing someone else's clothes, someone else's identity, and it doesn't quite fit. And Macduff uses the same image here. He thinks that the new clothes, the new identities that they've got now that Duncan has died, aren't going to be quite right, that things aren't going quite as they should. Ross says, "Farewell, father," and the old man, this is the last time we see him in the play, the old man said, God's benison go with you, and with those that would make good of bad and friends of foes." Okay, so quite a lot of information discussed in this scene. I want you to stop the video and do a summary using the 3-2-1 method. So write down 3 unnatural events, 2 pieces of information given by Macduff, and 1 piece of information we've learned about Macbeth, and I'll see you in the next video where we are moving on to Act 3.